Okay, so let's dive into the first module, which is the artist's mind, your mental wellness and your creativity. Your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts create everything. Everything that exists in the human-made world first existed as a thought in someone's mind. It began as a thought before it became reality. So take a moment to sit and think about that. Look at the room that you're in right now. Take a look around, observe all of the things that you can see, the human-made things, and think about the fact that every single one of those things was once a thought in somebody's mind. It began as a thought before it became reality. That is the power that your thoughts have. You can create almost anything you want if you can first create it as a thought. So, to curate a life that is a work of art, you must consciously choose, and as we earlier learned, that's curating, you must consciously choose or curate what thoughts you allow into your mind and then take the aligned action to bring them to life. So, first we have to think about it, right? We have to curate the thought, but then we need to take it to the next step, which is the aligned action to bring it to life. First, you think about creating it, and then you take the action to create it. So everything is in your mind. You need to learn to curate your thoughts. Your brain is always filtering information, especially right now in this modern world that we're living in. Your brain is just constantly overloaded with things and stuff and noise and things to process. At any given moment, your brain is bombarded with sensory data. What you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you smell, and what you taste. As human beings, we are sensual creatures, and all of our senses get filtered through our brain. It's a lot. So, what you focus on creates your reality. So, have a think about this. If you're constantly focusing on problems, limitations, and fears, your mind is going to start filtering the world in a way that reinforces those beliefs. Take a moment to think about somebody in your life that's perhaps kind of always got problems, always complaining, always negative. Do you want to be around somebody like that? Of course not, because that's what they're constantly focusing on. So that's the energy that they're emitting, and that's the reality that they're living in. They're living in a very negative energy. You don't want to be there. You want to focus on opportunities. You want to focus on solutions. You want to focus on goals. And if you start doing that, your brain will make sure that you start seeing and noticing things that align with that focus. Think about, in contrast, being around somebody who's always making something, going somewhere, doing something, a very inspiring kind of person. You want to be around that energy, right? Because that's the reality they're living in. You don't want to be living in the negative reality with a negative person. You want to be living in a positive and inspiring reality with a person who has trained their mind to see life as full of opportunities, full of solutions, full of goals, full of positivity and creativity, not the negativity. And that is your choice. And you have the ability to do that through curating your thoughts. So, how can you practically apply that to your creative life? You can curate your thoughts to focus on whatever you choose. I am statements are especially powerful in reinforcing any belief. If you repeatedly tell yourself, I am an artist and my life is art, your mind will start filtering reality to show you opportunities that align with that belief. I invite you to give it a try. Wake up in the morning, take a few breaths, and just say to yourself quietly, I am an artist, life is art. I am an artist, life is art. And at any point throughout the day, when you have a few moments, take a breath and affirm that statement. I am an artist, life is art. I promise you that your mind will start filtering reality to show you opportunities that align with that belief. And once you start telling yourself that, once you start affirming that, once you start programming your mind in that way, that is going to become your reality. You will be the artist of your life, and your life will be art. It's all about training your mind to focus on what you want to create the life that you want to live. So direct your focus intentionally because you create what you focus on. And I want you to sit with that thought for a moment. You create what you focus on. And that is proven by what we just did, looking around the room and looking at all of these things that have been created because somebody chose to focus on them and put that focus into action to physically create it. You have the ability to do that. You are an artist and your life is your art. Continue to tell yourself that, continue to affirm that, and your mind and your life will start becoming that belief. I promise. So let's look at the psychology of curating. And we're going to do this through Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a pyramid that you may have seen at some point throughout your life. And it shows us that creativity, freedom, and self-expression can only emerge once our foundational human needs, such as safety, connection, and self-worth, are being met. Without this foundation, we're not curating our lives, we're reacting to survival instincts. Think about that foundation. If the foundation isn't there, nothing can be built upon it. And as human beings, we have basic needs. And if those basic needs aren't met, we can't survive. So if survival mode is what we're living in, that means we haven't even established the foundation. If there's no foundation, we can't build. So as a human, you need to remind yourself, I have basic needs. And again, living in this hyper digital, super modern world that we live in, sometimes we can forget that we're humans. We have basic needs and we're not machines. You're not functioning on autopilot. You're not a robot. You are a human being and you have needs. And if those foundational needs are not met, you can't curate your life. You can't curate your life to be a work of art because you're reacting to survival instincts. You're going to be stuck in survival mode. And that is not where creativity thrives. So you need to understand this and shift the way that you approach everything from rest to boundaries and to your creative process. A machine doesn't need rest. A robot doesn't have boundaries. And a robot or a machine isn't inherently creative, but you are because you're a human. So take care of your basic needs. Check in with yourself. Make sure you're getting enough rest. Set the boundaries that you need to set and take care of your overall well-being, and your creativity is going to follow. You cannot access creativity, clarity, or flow if your nervous system is in survival mode because your basic human needs are not being met. And I know it sounds kind of crazy to have to remind yourself of this, but because we are, as I said, in such a modern world, we're so in digital technology, we're around machines, everything's a hustle, everything's a rush. It can be easy to forget that we're humans and we have needs, and those needs are basic and they are for our basic survival. And if the basic foundation isn't being met, not much else can happen. So don't ever forget you are a human being and you have basic needs. So the pyramid of Maslow's pyramid of needs, it mirrors the curator life that is a work of art philosophy because we're going to align our mind, our body, our soul, and our environment. So without stability in our physical, emotional, and psychological needs, creative expression cannot emerge. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is structured as a 5-tier pyramid with our basic needs at the bottom and the more complex psychological and self-fulfillment needs are at the top. So once we've got the foundation, then we can build upon it. But until we have the foundation solidified, until our basic needs are met, we can't build upon it. So we've got to have a strong foundation. Each level builds upon the previous one, meaning that when our lower level is unmet, it can be difficult to focus on higher pursuits such as personal growth and creativity. And if you're stuck in survival mode, it's going to be impossible to get out of it. So, what is Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I've broken it down here through a lens of creativity. You may have seen some version of this, and so I've slightly adapted it to focus on the creative well-being and the creative process. But the foundation is still the same. Human beings have physiological needs at the bottom as the foundation. That is our fundamental biological requirements for survival. And what are those? Air, water, food, shelter, clothing, sleep, and reproduction. That is what a human needs at a fundamental level. If you don't have that, you cannot build upon it. Once you've got your basic needs met, then you can go up in these tiers. The next is safety, then it's love and belonging, then it's esteem, and then at the very, very top is self-actualization. And that's the goal. That's where we want to get. But we cannot bypass the other levels and get there unless the foundation is solid and each level has been built upon the previous. So what does that mean? Let's start at the bottom because we all have to start somewhere. And yes, that's almost always at the bottom. At the bottom are our physiological needs, which are our basic needs for human survival. So at the foundation are the basics. Those are food, water, air, sleep, shelter, clothing, and reproduction. These are necessary for survival, and without them, a person cannot function. And when these needs are unmet, the body and mind enter a state of survival mode. Creativity requires energy, clarity, and focus, and all of those are impossible to sustain when basic physical needs are unmet. So, how does this relate to our creative wellness? Well, have a think about it. Prioritize your sleep, prioritize your hydration, prioritize movement, and those things are foundational for your creative practice and your overall well-being. If you're feeling disconnected from your creativity, start by checking in with the basics. Check in with your physical well-being. Your creativity is going to flow most freely when your physical body is supported, when your basic survival needs are met. And it might be as simple as, hey, did I get a good enough night of sleep last night? Am I well rested? Did I have a nutritious breakfast this morning? Have I taken a walk around the block and got some sunshine on my skin? Do I need to have a glass of water? It could be those basic things that you just need to check in with yourself. And as I said, sometimes it's really easy to forget about that in this fast-paced world that we live in, but just check in with yourself with the basics and make sure that you're not, oh my gosh, I'm in creative burnout. I don't know. I'm uninspired. What's going on? You might just need a glass of water. You might need to take a 10-minute walk outside, get some sun on your skin, take a few deep breaths, listen to the birds. You might need to take a nap. Just look at the basic human needs and make sure all of those are taken care of first, and then ask yourself the question. Start at the bottom of the pyramid. I know it sounds basic, but it can be easy to forget in this fast-paced modern world. So take care of the basics, take care of the foundation. Then move up to the next. Safety needs. So once your basic survival needs are met, the next priority is your safety. So this includes personal security, financial security, health, and having a safe environment. Humans function best when they feel a sense of predictability in their daily lives. So if you're under constant stress, and that can be about money, housing, your personal security, your mental bandwidth is going to be consumed by those survival concerns. And if you're consumed with thinking about your basic survival, you can't do much else. That's why it's so important to get these basic needs taken care of. If your creative work feels forced, consider whether your external stresses are demanding too much of your energy. Because again, if you are in survival mode, that's all you're going to be able to do. You cannot expect to be creative. You cannot be expecting to do anything else other than surviving. Financial stress, job instability, and emotional turmoil can directly affect your creativity. Again, you cannot function beyond survival mode if your basic needs aren't being met. So always check in with yourself. You're a human being. You have basic needs. You're not a robot, and you are not a machine functioning on autopilot. Take care of your well-being. And then move up to the next rung, which is love and belonging. Human beings are inherently social, and feelings of love and intimacy, family bonds, friendships, and belonging are crucial for your emotional well-being. Without meaningful connections, people experience loneliness, isolation, and depression. So, of course, you've got to take care of your personal physical needs, as the basis for this pyramid, but then you've also got to think about your community. You've got to think about your relationships. As humans, we need those things. Again, robots and machines don't. Human beings do. And creativity thrives in connection. While solitude is an important part of the artistic process, too much isolation can be detrimental as well. So, being part of a creative community provides inspiration, feedback, and emotional support. It's so important to connect with others. So, seek out like minded individuals who share your values and your interests, whether it's through artist residencies, creative workshops, online communities, or in person collaborations. Surround yourself with people who inspire you. We're going to get into this as we move through this course, but this is so, so, so important. People are part of your environment, and who you surround yourself with has so much impact on your overall well-being and your creativity. Seek out people who inspire you and inspire you to be the most creative and the best expression of yourself. It's so important for your well-being. Then we move along to our esteem, which is confidence and recognition. So, all human beings have a fundamental need to feel valued, capable, and respected, both by themselves and by others. So, a strong sense of self worth allows people to take risks, share their ideas, and contribute to the world in meaningful and creative ways. So, self doubt or limiting beliefs, which we're going to get into later, are one of the biggest obstacles to your creativity. Many people struggle with imposter syndrome, perfectionism, or fear of judgment. Your confidence in creativity comes from consistent practice, and this is something we're going to talk a lot about in this course, self-acceptance, and releasing the need for external validation. Creativity is about authentic self-expression, and the more you create without fear, the more natural creative confidence becomes. And then the final tip of the pyramid is self-actualization, which is reaching your full creative potential. And this level is characterized by personal growth, self-awareness, creative expression, and an embodied sense of purpose. And Maslow described this self-actualized individual as those who embrace their true nature, live authentically, and pursue their passions with clarity and confidence. I mean, doesn't that sound aspirational? I mean, that's how I want to live my life as an artist and in general. And at any point with anything that I'm saying here, if you want to stop, pause, write this down, do your own research, I really encourage you to do that. And this is something that I think you could write down and come back to. Think about a self-actualized individual. Think about someone who embraces their true nature, lives authentically, and pursues their passions with clarity and confidence. That is what we're aiming for when we curate a life that is a work of art. This is the state where creativity flows effortlessly, and this is what we're aiming for. It's the point where creating becomes a natural and fulfilling extension of the self. Your mind, your body, your soul, and your environment are aligned, and this allows for unrestricted creative expression. So, take a moment to pay attention to what feels most aligned in your creative practice. When creative flows naturally, it's a sign that you're moving towards self-actualization, and art and life are not separate. Life is art. And that is the goal at the top of the pyramid. But again, you can't get to the top of the pyramid unless you take care of all the other levels underneath it. You're a human being, you have basic needs. So check in with yourself, take care of yourself, and make sure you're taking care of each level on the pyramid and you're not trying to jump ahead. So we got to start at the bottom, right? We got to start at the bottom of the pyramid. And too often we try to curate from the top of the pyramid and bypass the foundation. We attempt to design a beautiful life while ignoring our basic human need for rest, security, or emotional regulation. Your ability to curate a life that is a work of art needs a foundation to build upon. And when the foundation is solid, and when your basic human needs are met, you can create your life with intention rather than blindly choosing from reaction. So it's all about aligning your mind, your body, your soul, and your environment. So, how do we overcome creative blocks and limiting beliefs? Creativity is often hindered by limiting beliefs, those deeply ingrained thoughts that tell us that we're not good enough, we're not creative enough, and we're not capable enough. These beliefs shape our reality, keeping us trapped in self-doubt and stagnation. We can learn to question these thoughts and realign with our creative truth. So that is when we return to our natural creative state. As children, we instinctively know how to create. We don't question whether our art is good enough. We simply create with joy, confidence, and curiosity. Take a moment to think about that. The last time you saw a group of kids with a bunch of art supplies and how excited they are. They love to make a mess. They love to make things. They're not holding back. They're not self-conscious. They're not scared to show you. They just dive in. They make a mess. They get involved and they're so inspired and happy to create. Children embrace that messiness. They proudly share their work without fear or judgment. But as we grow, we begin to internalize limiting beliefs, and most of those aren't even ours. Think about that contrast. Think about the excitement that a child has about the opportunity to create, and then think about an adult. For me, I see children, as I said, embracing the creative process, and then you see adults, they like, oh, and then they say things like, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure. Oh, I'm not creative. I'm not an artist. So what happens between childhood and adulthood? This comes from external sources such as societal expectations, critical teachers, dismissive parents, or cultural messages that tell us that creativity is frivolous and that only certain people are real artists. These beliefs are not truths. They are simply stories we have absorbed. And like any story, it can be rewritten. And I'd like to dismantle the starving artist myth. So, one of the most pervasive limiting beliefs is the starving artist myth. It's the idea that creativity is not a viable path, that art is only a hobby, and that pursuing it as a career is irresponsible. How many times have you heard any of those things in your life? I was told this as a child. I'm speaking from personal experience here. I internalized this and I believed that if I wanted to make a living, I had to do something practical. So that's why I studied graphic design, which to me seemed like the closest thing to an art job. For many years, it fulfilled my bank account, but not my soul. It was not my authentic truth. Eventually, I questioned the belief. Was it actually true that art couldn't sustain me, or had I just accepted someone else's fear-based perspective? And I want you to take a moment to think about that now. At any point in your life, has somebody told you that no, you can't be an artist, that no, creativity isn't a viable path, that no, art is only a hobby? If you have heard that at some point, do you now believe it to be true? Perhaps you're like me and you've gone and proven that it absolutely is not true. Have you just accepted someone else's fear-based perspective? Take a moment to think about it. I chose a life less ordinary. I left a conventional path. I moved to Costa Rica and I became a full-time artist. I proved to myself that these beliefs, people's beliefs, they weren't true. And you can do the same. The world needs artists. It needs visionaries and it needs creative thinkers. And art is not frivolous. It shapes culture, it challenges perspectives, and it brings beauty and meaning to life. So, how do we overcome these pervasive limiting beliefs? Creativity is often hindered by these limiting beliefs, and they are deeply ingrained thoughts that tell us, I'm not good enough. I'm not creative. I don't have time. Art isn't a real job. I don't know how. I'm not talented. I can't draw a stick figure. Do any of these sound familiar? I'm sure they do. Take a moment to reread those. You might even want to add a couple that you've heard in your life to that list as well. Remember, your thoughts create your reality. So read through that list. Are those the kind of thoughts that you want to create in your reality? Are those thoughts even true for you? I guarantee you that they're not. We must learn to question our thoughts and curate the ones that align with us. So take a moment now to think about any limiting beliefs that you have about your creativity. And there's a really great book that I recommend that you read for this exercise. It's called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And the premise of her book is all about questioning these limiting beliefs and questioning where they came from and questioning if they're even true for you, because most of the time they aren't. So take a few moments. You can pause here, think about what these questions, think about these statements. Has anybody ever said it to you? When did it come up for you? Is it even true for you? And just think about how you want to create your reality. And if any of those statements there are in alignment, I seriously doubt it. So let's move on to the power of now in creativity and presence and flow. Creativity thrives in the present moment. When fully immersed in creation, you enter a state of flow where time dissolves, inspiration rises effortlessly, and self-doubt fades. However, many of us struggle with staying present as the mind is often in a state of reacting to past regrets or future worries. In the power of now, Eckhart Tolle teaches that we are not our thoughts. We are the watcher who observes them. If you're not familiar with this book, I highly recommend that you read it. You could download it and listen to it as an audio book. It's a fascinating read, and it will really, really challenge the way that you think about the present moment and all of these limiting beliefs that are swirling around in your head. You are not your thoughts. You are the watcher who observes them. By becoming the watcher of our thoughts, we can let go of limiting beliefs and self-doubt instead of identifying with them. Negative thoughts will always arise, but we can choose not to engage with them. Instead, we can curate thoughts that align. Creativity does not exist in the past or the future. It can only unfold in the now. When you are fully present, your creative process becomes effortless. You're not held back by past mistakes or caught up in future anxieties. You are simply in the moment, engaged with what is in front of you. Consider the times that you have felt most creatively alive. In these moments, you are not thinking about external validation, success, or failure. You are simply creating, flowing with the energy of the present moment. So take a moment to think about that. When you're fully present, you're in your creative process. I'm sure there's been times in your life where this has come up for you. You're simply in the moment, engaged with whatever is in front of you, whether it's a mural, it's a painting, it's a drawing, it's a book that you're writing, a piece of music that you're composing, anything that you're creating in that moment. You are fully present, flowing with the energy of the present moment. When you worry about the future, you're disconnected from the present, where inspiration naturally arises. And then when you obsess about the past, you limit your ability to embrace new creative possibilities. The key to unlocking your full creative potential is staying present and being here and now. So, how can we cultivate this presence in our creativity? Here's some things that have helped me along the way. Journaling before creating. Free writing before a creative session can help clear mental clutter and ground you in the present. I am a massive advocate for journaling, and it's going to come up a lot in this course. So if you don't have a journaling practice, I highly recommend that you do. Pick up a pen, grab a piece of paper, and just start writing. You can also tap into some mindful breathing. Take a few deep breaths before beginning your creative process that can anchor you into the now. One of the easiest ways to come back to the present moment at any point is through your breath. You are breathing right now. So take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. And when you exhale for a longer count than you inhale, you're actually naturally telling your body that it's time to relax and down-regulate. So you can tap into this at any point in time. If you feel yourself kind of stressing out about something, if you need a creative reset, if you just need to come back to the present, deep breath in, long exhale out, and the exhale is longer than your inhale. Do that a few times and be in the present moment. Check in with yourself. Activate your senses. Focus on how you feel. Notice what you see around you and listen to sounds. Human beings are sensual creatures. All of our senses are involved in our creative process. As it says here, focus on what you're feeling. Notice on what you're seeing. Notice what you're hearing. Like engage all of your senses in your experience. That is a very great way to connect with the present moment. Do movement as a reset. Get outside, walk in nature, and bring yourself back into your body and into the present moment. Get your body involved in the process. Move your body. Feel your feet on the earth. Feel the wind on your skin. Feel the sunshine coming down on you. Feel, engage your senses, and move your body. It's a wonderful way to be present. And then observe without judgment. If you notice your mind drifting to worries or self-criticism, gently bring your attention back to your work without judgment. Don't judge. Don't listen to the imposter syndrome. Notice that it's there, but just come back to the present moment and do any of these exercises that can help you to be back and anchored into the present. And then always visualize and affirm, I am the artist of my life is my art, and my art is my life. Continue to tell yourself that over and over again. Train your mind to curate these thoughts, and they will become your reality. So let's talk about meditation for creative wellness. Meditation is a proven method to regulate your nervous system and to relax the parts of your brain that support focus, flow, and imagination. In a world that's loud, fast, and constantly demanding your attention, which is very yang, choose to slow down and curate stillness and purposeful silence, which is very yin. It's a wonderful way to practice and achieve balance and harmony. When the mind is cluttered with distraction, stress, or overthinking, creativity is going to struggle to emerge. But when we slow down, breathe, and observe without reacting, we curate the space for creativity to emerge. This can look like a traditional seated meditation, breath work, repeating an affirmation, or simply closing your eyes and visualizing. Invite peace and quiet to your mind and your overall state of being. So you might be asking, how can I start a meditation practice? If you're new to meditation, having a guide can be incredibly helpful. As with learning any new skill or practice, I encourage you to be kind and patient with yourself as you explore something new. Meditation sounds simple, but it's actually really, really challenging. There are endless free resources out there. Explore what resonates with you. And the important thing is to start. And yes, like everything else, you have to practice. You can also enter a meditative state through creative practice. Repetitive movement like drawing shapes, mandalas, painting, or even coloring can become its own form of meditation. The rhythmic repetition calms your nervous system and allows you to drop into the present moment, flow, and a peaceful way of being where creativity thrives. You can also access theta brainwave states through creativity. The theta brainwave state is a neurological frequency associated with deep relaxation, meditation, creativity, and the subconscious mind. Scientifically, it ranges from about 4 to 8 hertz and is most commonly accessed during REM sleep, deep meditation, or right before falling asleep and just after waking. In this state, the brain becomes more receptive, imaginative, and intuitively guided. It's where neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to rewire itself, is heightened. Many artists, musicians, and inventors have accessed theta without even knowing it, simply by getting lost in the flow of their creative practice. I have personally accessed this state many times in my creative life, but it wasn't until recently that I discovered that there was an actual scientific term for it. So if you have any form of a creative practice, this might resonate with you. Have you ever been like so deeply enthralled in what you're doing, whether it's painting a mural or drawing or just any repetitive practice? It can even happen when you're walking, or you just get into this flow state where time just doesn't really exist anymore. It's You're probably in a theta brainwave state. And this is something that I really encourage you to research. It's really, really fascinating, and it's backed by science. And a really great resource for this is a guy named Dr. Greg Wells. He's got some great talks on YouTube. And if you want to deep dive this state a little more, I recommend that you do some research on him. Repetitive rhythmic activities like drawing, painting, or even mindful walking can naturally lower your brainwaves and guide you into this meditative state. This is why creating art can feel so deeply calming and transformative. It literally shifts your brain's operating system. The key is consistency and rhythm. When you honor what works for your nervous system, you begin to access theta more easily and regularly. I encourage you to find the activities that allow your brain to settle, your breath to slow, and your awareness to expand. This is where true creativity lies. Creativity thrives in flow. It's something that emerges when we give ourselves the space to be. And don't forget that we are human beings. We are not human doings. So lean into the yin, slow down, be present, focus on your breath, relax, and just be. So in summary, this wraps up module number 1, the mind. Learn to watch and curate your thoughts. You create what you focus on. Question your limiting beliefs. They are often untrue stories that you tell yourself. Never forget that you were born creative. The doubts that you have now are not your own. They were given to you, and you have the power to let them go. The starving artist is a myth. You can create a life that aligns with your artistic truth. And you need to practice. Commit to self-improvement in small increments over an extended